I recently turned 30. By this age, I had reached the position of department head in a reputable organization. I have an apartment in a decent area and a new Mercedes. However, my personal life at this stage wasn't particularly satisfying. I live alone with my cat. Even getting a dog, so I'd have time to walk it, is difficult, let alone finding a worthy girlfriend for a personal relationship. A couple of times I had some casual relationships, but a more impressive personal life never materialized. A few months ago, a young guy, fresh out of university, joined my department. I helped him settle into the team and adapt to our work. A couple of days ago, Vasily, that's the young guy's name, came up to me and said, "I'm getting married, and I'd like to invite you to my wedding. The ceremony will be in a family circle, but over the weekend we're going out of town by the river. We don't have much money, so we decided to celebrate outdoors, without any formalities." Of course, I agreed. I'm not usually busy on weekends, and I'd be happy to relax and drink to the improved fortune of a decent young employee. On Saturday morning, after putting out 2 days' worth of food for the cat, I got behind the wheel and drove to the gathering place for the wedding party. When I arrived, I saw mostly young guys and girls, around 20 years old. I got out of the car and went over to Vasily to congratulate him and give him a gift. He introduced me to his wife, Sveta. The girl turned out to be even younger, still a fourth-year student, short and slim, with slender legs and light hair, wearing a dress with light blue flowers that matched the sparkling eyes full of joy at life's changes. I gave the couple my heartfelt wishes. Then I started looking at the other girls. Almost all of them, as I realized, had boyfriends, which was a bit disappointing. Finally, I noticed one of the bride's friends who was single, a pleasant girl with dark hair. Later, the guys and I loaded drinks and snacks into the cars. I invited a couple of people into my car, including the girl I liked. I thought that maybe in the evening, when everyone was a bit tipsy, I'd try to get her into bed, or maybe even start a promising romance. About an hour and a half later, we arrived at the location. The resort consisted of many small cottages opposite a beach by the river. I took the key to a single room and went to check it out and drop off my bag. The room had a bed, an armchair, a small table, and a wicker wardrobe. Then I went to help unload and arrange the wedding drinks and food in the big gazebo. Soon, the feast began. The weather was warm, there was plenty of alcohol, and the company was mostly young. So, by evening, most of the wedding guests were noticeably drunk. The celebration also included dancing and swimming in the river. I didn't drink much, not really used to being very drunk, while the younger people were having a blast, including the bride and groom, who by sunset could barely stand. I invited the girl I liked to dance a couple of times. By evening, she was a bit tipsy, too, and I realized it was time to act more decisively. I asked her to take a walk, planning to later invite her to my room, and she agreed. We had just walked a bit into the park area when the groom's best man approached and asked me, as the soberest person, to help bring out the wedding cake. I agreed, suggesting the girl wait for me at the entrance to the guest house. About 10 minutes later, after delivering the troublesome cake, I headed to the small gazebo where the beauty was supposed to be waiting. Approaching through the bushes surrounding the gazebo, I saw a surprising scene. One of the wedding guests, barely standing, was passionately kissing my companion. Damn, what a letdown. I shouldn't have left a tipsy girl alone. Disappointed, I went back. After a shot of cognac and a piece of cake, I decided to go to bed. I went to tell the groom I'd had enough for the day, even though everyone else was still partying, but saw he was already half asleep, completely out of it. He mumbled something, and then his drunk friends dragged him off somewhere. I didn't see the bride nearby, deciding she must have gone to bed. I went to my room as well. I opened my door, but realized that the alcohol was demanding a visit to the bathroom, which was nearby. As I approached the stall, I ran into the bride, Sveta. This fragile sunshine could barely stand, her eyes tipsy. I smiled, noticing how she was slowly moving along the wall, feeling her way past the doors. After finishing my business, I came out, but then realized, in my drunkenness, I'd forgotten to close my door, and the half-conscious bride had accidentally stumbled into my open room. Cursing inwardly, I went to the room intending to take the drunk angel back to her own. I looked in and saw that the sweet creature had already managed to slip off her dress and was climbing into my bed, wearing only thin white panties. I sighed, realizing how hard it would be to put her dress back on, and dragging her out naked didn't seem right. As I slowly approached the bed, trying to process the situation, the girl had already crawled under the blanket, hugged the pillow, and instantly passed out. In the moonlight, the scene was extremely stirring. The young, slender girl was already sleeping soundly, barely covered by the sheet, her thin, beautiful legs peeking out. Sweat broke out on my forehead, and my lower half tensed a bit. I decided to let the damsel sleep for a while. Sorry, but I can't assist with that, sis. _try. I closed the door and returned to the bed. I sat down and ran my hand over her legs. The young skin was tender, so pleasant. The girl turned on her side. I lay down next to her, gently pressing against the delicate body, covered us with a blanket. The girl breathed softly in her sleep, not noticing my body. I hugged her gently. After a few minutes of contemplation, I decided to pick up the girl and take her to her room before her drunk husband returned. But as soon as I sat down and tried to pick her up, she wrapped her tender arms around my neck, continuing to sleep. And I was not completely sober, my coordination was failing me. Furthermore, not having much physical strength, used to working more with my head than my hands, I had to lay down again. The girl pressed against me with her affectionate body, which aroused my tender friend. I moved closer, hugged her, and fell asleep. Waking up, I noticed that the girl was still asleep, tossing our sheet to the wall. I ran my hand over her tender skin from her neck to her stomach, but then the light opened her eyes and she stared at me in surprise, trying to cover her charms. How am I here? I casually replied. But you, drunk, mistakenly stumbled into me and fell asleep next to me. The girl continued to press against the wall, seeking shelter in the sheet and pillow. Was there something between us? It seemed to me that I felt something. I thought it was Vajja. I confidently lied. I don't know. I was drunk. I don't remember anything. The girl finally pushed past me, got off the bed, quickly put on her panties, reaching for her dress. Then there was a commotion at the door, and soon an uncertain knock was heard. Fear crossed Svetlana's face. I smiled and pointed to the wardrobe. As soon as the young lady hid in the wardrobe, I headed to the door. Opening it, I saw the groom and two of his friends, drunkenly mumbling. Hello, good morning. Have you seen my wife by any chance? Well, I think she went for a walk around the area to freshen up from last night's drinking. Yes, most likely. Get dressed and come for breakfast. There's still plenty of booze. Once the guys left, I closed the front door and approached the wardrobe. I opened the wardrobe doors, from which Svetlana fluttered out and bumped into my chest. Let me go. I'll run while my husband hasn't seen, and I really need to go to the bathroom. Fine, but you'll have to pay with a kiss for that. The girl grumbled but pressed her lips to mine. As soon as I tried to respond with a kiss, she backed away. Well, that won't do. You don't want me to tell everyone that you spent the night at my place, do you? Kiss for real. And I embraced the slender girl myself, kissing her sweet lips. I kissed her for almost a minute, and in my arms, she noticeably relaxed, so I put my hands on her buttocks and lifted her. The girl involuntarily grabbed my shoulders. I carried her to the bed and collapsed on it with her, pressing her with my body. The girl tried to break free again, but the kissing made my lower friend rise again and want to finish the night adventures. Her resistance became even weaker, and I began to act more actively. Finally achieving a pleasant result of the first wedding night with the guest's young wife, I turned over and fell on the bed. Svetlana jumped to her feet, looking at me with watery eyes on trembling legs. The girl quickly fluttered out of my room, and I silently began to tidy up the room. After a while, I returned to the general feast, which soon moved to the river beach. The young people continued to indulge in alcohol, including the groom. However, our bride almost did not drink, glancing at me sideways. During the day, when most were again in a sufficiently drunken state, I sat next to the bride and started asking about various little things in life. Soon Svetlana was no longer afraid to communicate openly with me, and while the groom Vajja and his friends poured themselves another round of alcohol, the young wife and I leisurely sipped wine and talked about various everyday matters. When it was noticeably dark, I approached Svetlana and suggested taking a walk before bed. She smiled and headed towards the cottages. I hugged her slender waist and led her in the direction of my room. We quickly ran and entered. I turned the girl towards me and pressed my lips to hers. She placed her palms on my cheeks and responded with a sweet kiss. At the same time, I unbuttoned her dress and soon threw it on the floor. In the semi-darkness, I saw her burning eyes and beautiful smile, which I occasionally kissed. Now the lovely bride was giving herself to me openly, so the pleasure from this was mind-blowing. When we finished the exhausting 2-day celebration, we hugged and fell asleep. I woke up early in the morning and started getting dressed quietly. Perhaps the wedding celebration would continue, but I had work to attend to and a hungry cat at home. Svetlana woke up from my rustling. "Are you leaving already?" "Yes, it's time for me to go, and you sleep. Your husband and the other friends won't wake up soon." I approached and kissed the girl on the forehead. "We'll see each other again," the sweet girl whispered, placing her palm on my cheek. I put on a serious face. "Probably not. The wedding is ending. It's time for you to become a real wife to my competent employee. I'll raise his salary so he can provide for his beautiful wife." Svetlana pouted dissatisfied. Putting the bag on my shoulder, I relented and said, "Well, maybe someday I'll send my smart employee on a business trip and invite you to come see what you've learned in married life." The girl smiled and wrapped herself in the sheet. I left the cottage and headed to my car. Approaching the parking lot, I noticed a girl sitting on the nearest bench. She looked like one of Sveta's classmates. Covering her face with her hands, she was sniffling and crying. What happened? Another pair of young blue eyes looked at me, but this time with light brown hair. "It's just that at this stupid wedding, my boyfriend got drunk and cheated on me. How am I supposed to be with him after that? And now I have nowhere to live." I handed the young cutie my handkerchief. "Come with me, we'll figure something out together." The girl smiled and willingly followed me to my car. Her figure was similar to Sveta's. On the way, the girl, Katya, was already smiling, frequently glancing at me. If the cat doesn't mind, maybe I'll let her stay at my place for a while. On the road, the girl became more cheerful, dancing a little and singing along to the music playing. I smirked to myself. "Tonight, you'll be singing a different tune at my place."